I mean, I usually talk to like one person for 5 days.
Yeah.
One.
I'm not sure about being jolly all the time.
Jolly! Oh, well, you know.
So I finally got the streams up and going. I double checked Roberts has started, and after that, I'm gonna do like I did last time. I'm gonna come out with a cool introduction for his I'll be his announcer and I'll do the ending. And I told Robert that when he's ready to end the show, just say, "Roger, take us out." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just something real sweet and simple. Now his topic today is supposed to be extreme weather and cold weather is the second part of it. So when he comes out and if he kind of stumbles, you know what I mean, step in and kind of help him out and get it started. Because once he gets started, he's doing good, but he has a hard time with starting out.
And notice those 4 images you gave, 3 of them are shown exactly the same to the data.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Is that me? Is that the one that I posted? Was it the one that I posted in the Infinite Imaginarium? Or
images?
Oh, the images I posted?
Yeah, with your sun radiates.
Oh, that's Bob Dubs. Yeah,
that was me.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Yeah, it's stupid, and I wanted to delete them, and I got distracted and didn't because I don't know where they came from. It was some glitch. Wasn't meant to be in there.
It's good though because the talking points were pretty interesting. So I think we're going to have a really good show once we get this started. I really do. Those are really good. Robert said he's here, by the way. He's just being shy and not talking. But he said that he doesn't know much about photosynthesis, but he said it wouldn't hurt to actually hear about it. So because he's into stuff like that, you know.
Well,
hold on now. Don't give the cookies away. We're not even on stream yet, Bob.
Never, ever in school, I never ever did one single biology lesson. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Somehow I was always doing alternative choices. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea about cell structure or photosynthesis I know the sun's radiation from geography. Mm-hmm. But so I'm going to need some time to prepare, Roger.
Well, we're just having a conversation right now. If you want to,
but it's awesomeness if we
set something up like that, because you got to remember, man, I'm focusing on Earth right now, like Earth, my channel Earth. So if you want to do a presentation, we can set that up, man.
If you give me some time and tell me what you want, I can put it together for you.
Okay.
I can. If you want like 10 minutes at the beginning of a show where I just open up with whatever it is you say.
You do what you want to do. If you're giving the presentation, you do the presentation. You know
like if it's like you want to know something deeper about photosynthesis, or you want to go deeper into I don't know, whatever, radiation. If you want to just do a little segment.
Okay. Now, I told Robert what his role is at the beginning of this, and I told him he's got to be the freaking host. He's got to sound cool and hip like me. Mm-hmm. And when he comes out, he has to be as cool as Bob Barker.
So, I remind me about something that you weren't so cool doing. You used like a post in the Minds user group, Minds group, yesterday saying join us in Jitsi in an hour's time. You deleted it after the hour, so I saw it only about 2 hours ago, and I was
right. Yeah. Yes, I got that in Dude, Where's My Wallet too. I found it only after the show, so I unapproved it. It was.
I actually deleted it because it's not relevant anymore. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Boy, you English people are something else.
Well,
we're onto
if we're
it, right?
20 hours after the fact.
We don't want people to say that bloody Roger Hanson.
Yes,
we're protecting you. We've got your back.
I enjoy that stuff. You know that. When you guys do that stuff, I'm grinning from ear to ear, man. I love it. That foolish American.
Foolish American.
That's what Mark says.
Agreed.
Is that what you say, Mark?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever used that term before.
But it sounds kind of like it. He would say it in a British.
You just make things up, don't you, Roger?
Yeah.
What world am I in today?
Okay, so we've got 1 minute. I'll do the countdown at the hour and then hit record. Now, Robert, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't be nervous. It's going to be good. You just come out. And it's like I said, if you start stumbling, everybody will help you with getting the show started, okay?
Oh, okay.
So you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. We'll just listen to you. See where you're taking it.
It's like at 4:59. It seems like the longest minute. You know what I mean?
I know, isn't it? That long minute.
So is this the gardening show?
No, this is better. It's
okay, because you mentioned that I could show up. I didn't know if it was what was going on exactly. I just got back from work. A little confused.
Okay, so I'm going to do the countdown. I'm going to do an introduction as the announcer for Robert and then hand it over to him. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us, whether you're watching us live or catching the replay later. Tonight, we'll be discussing several topics that Robert has been looking forward to sharing. We'd like to take one at a time, giving each topic the attention it deserves before moving on to the next. If you're new to the channel, we're glad you're here, and we hope you'll enjoy the conversation. Now, here's my brother and tonight's host, Robert Hanson.
Thank you very much, Roger, and everyone that does appear here. The conversation tonight and the ideal is the different ice ages and how it affected plants, different plants from different time periods, and photosynthesis on how through the snow, how far could photosynthesis still keeps the plant going, and the plant's heart, like how long does a plant survive in the cold, freezing? And if it's but the root system, the heart, does the heart survive in the cold? And like mushroom, how does mushrooms operate in the cold? Okay, and let's begin.
Okay, so you want me to read the topic that you had me pull up and everything?
Yes.
Okay, so I just went ahead and called this extremely cold weather. And here's the notes that I pulled up. First of all, it said significant research has been conducted on how plants endure extreme cold, revealing that they use antifreeze chemistry, structural modification, and specialized specialized geographic safe zones to survive brutal winters and full-scale ice ages. Just as plants do not possess moving organs, the fa- that no that just as plants do not possess moving organs that fail under radiation, they also lack a warm-blooded circulatory system that freezes, allowing them to adapt to sub-zero temperatures using entirely different biological mechanics. Now, the first part is how modern plants survive extreme cold. That's lab and field research. So, laboratory experiments on cold tolerant models like Arabidopsis thaliana, the antifreeze dehydration strategy. No, thaliana, which is Thel cress, have identified the exact genetic and biochemical switches triggered by extreme drop-offs in temperature. And that has to do with the antifreeze dehydration strategy, which when temperatures drop below freezing, ice crystals naturally want to form. If they form inside a plant cell, the sharp ice punctures the cell membrane, killing it. Research shows that cold-tolerant plants intentionally pump water into their cells, into the gaps between them simultaneously. They fill the inside of the cell with concentrated sugars and specialized antifreeze proteins. This lowers the liquid's freezing point, allowing the core cell to stay fluid even when surrounded by external ice. So that's actually pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that.
It's totally amazing. I also read something about it, that they manufacture special proteins which go into the cell and push all the water out. So it still makes ice, but the ice doesn't pop the cell. Isn't that extraordinary?
It's amazing. It's antifreeze. I mean, it's like we have antifreeze for cars.
How do you think they figured it out? That's the thing that amazes me. If this was all done by trial and error, how on earth does a plant just decide to make antifreeze to keep itself alive? It's extraordinary. It's a miracle.
Well, if it decided, it would be Lamarckism rather than Darwinism. But it is interesting to look at the different models we have for how plants develop this. It's very easy to talk about Darwinian evolution in terms of feather patterns on birds for camouflage, but this is an extremely complex, an extremely sophisticated system, and kind of chemistry that it seems like, I don't want to go down the road of intelligent design, but this is the sort of thing that gets people thinking about intelligent design.
It's amazing. They have this part right here. It's called exaptation from drought and salt stress, where it says a study by the Center for Organismal Study at Heidelberg University on Cochlearia, which is spoonweeds, discovered that plants originally developed genetic protections to survive dry, salty Mediterranean climates. Now, when the Ice Age hit, the plants repurposed those exact genetic pathways because drought and extreme cold weather deprived the plant of liquid water. The mechanisms to survive them are practically identical. That's insane. So they used the same method not only for extremely cold weather, but for drought as well.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So was this something that developed during an ice age? Or has this been there since the beginning? Do you know?
I can do a quick check. That's my job.
I would imagine it evolved over millions of years. I mean,
Well,
we've had what 5 it's been estimated we've had 5 ice ages.
But I think it is true though that there are things, that your genetics express themselves physically in ways that don't always seem obviously useful, and yet you can run into a situation like this almost like there was planning, because unless some of the plants could survive these new conditions, and some of the plants were already had the capability to do this, they could not pass this down to their descendants. If none of them were able to adapt to this, they just all have been wiped out in that area. They would have gone extinct in that climate zone. So if they were able to change the way they handled the drought conditions and stuff, I'm not a biologist, but my first thought is that some of them must have already been able to do that, or they wouldn't have survived to pass those characteristics down. And I think part of it is sometimes we have genes that seem to do things that don't make any sense until the environment changes and suddenly you need that. So I guess I'm moving towards intelligent design again. Sorry.
And I'm just thinking that some plants will will die out, and plants from warmer areas would, as long as it's land based, then would move in.
Right, they'll fill up the vacuum.
Yeah.
Just work.
Yeah, but wouldn't it? I was wondering, like with the plants from one ice age, with the plant, what you call it, change the structure of the plant would change with the climate and as well too. But still,
Well, going back to my previous point about life doesn't stop once it evolves into a certain being. It keeps on evolving.
Now I did finally pull up the information Bob Dub was asking, and I can read it to you guys if you want to, because it actually fits into what you guys are saying. You want me to read?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it says plants pre-adapted or co-opted existing molecular signaling networks. Originally, it evolved in freshwater streptophyte algae to manage fluctuation nutrients or osmotic shifts as expectations when they moved to land 450 to 470 million years ago during the Ordovician period. So the evolution timeline of stress exaptation is pre-adaptive in algae that was 600 to 500 million years ago. Ancestral freshwater green algae developed basic osmotic and hormonal, such as early abscisic acid-like signaling pathways to handle fluctuation ion concentrations in periodic drying in shallow or algotrophic ponds. Now, the land transition happened 470 to 450 million years ago, and that says that as primitive embryophytes like liverwort or like liverwort-like ancestors established themselves on land during the Middle Ordovician. They co-opted these ancestral aquatic stress pathways. Now, expansion of desiccation, and salinity. Features built from low nutrients or fluctuating aquatic conditions were expected or exapted into robust defense systems against atmospheric drought and hyper osmotic soil or coastal salinity stress. So, and then they have.
I'm not sure about your time period because the Sigonian Ice Age, the second, as far as we know, the second major ice age was 722 635 million years ago. The Andonian Saharan Ice Age, the third, being 450 to 420 million. 420 to 450 million years ago. So you're talking around that third ice age.
Well, they're talking about early Devonian fossil records here too. And
Okay. We're using two different measurements.
Like the fossil variations most likely has to do with how long like the fossils will remain, because I doubt any kind of plant fossils will be available all the way back. You know what I mean? Like they might be able to come up with them, but I doubt they have the technology to do that. Because I mean, even with archaeology, we can only go back on our archaeology findings like 10,000 years, I believe, 10,000 BC, right at the early Dryas period.
Oh.
So it's interesting. But they say that with the fossil verification, that's 400 million years ago. Early Devonian. I
think it's Devonian is what I've always said, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Early Devonian fossil records from sites like the Rhynes Chert confirm that primitive land plants already possess established anatomical and physiological mechanisms for dealing with drought and salinity. So they're talking about not really cold weather, but coming from the sea up onto land and actually.
So they're using pre-existing, almost like they can already handle that stuff. So they're moving into an environment where they can handle that stuff. In other words, they're growing to where they're able to. I'm putting this kind of simply, but because they already had these pre-existing strengths that enabled them to elbow their way somewhere where they could cope with drought or salinity or stuff like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone there in the first place. So they didn't develop it to get there. They got there because they developed it.
Right, and they learned to adapt it.
Years ago would be after the Andonian Saharan Ice Age by roughly 20 million years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would have given enough time for these plants to evolve and into the new sort of climate.
Now they have another part too that was the extreme dormancy and structural defense. Do you want me to go ahead and read that part?
Carry on.
What about you, Robert? You cool?
Yeah.
Okay, so in tundra and Arctic research, scientists have documented visual and structural tactics. Plants grow in cushion shapes or low to the ground prostate forms to trap ambient heat radiating from the soil and escape brutal shearing winds. Others use dense, fine hairs to look in a layer of insulating air. Now, it goes from there to part 2 where it says how plants survives the deep ice ages. And it says during past glacial periods, massive sheets of ice scoured the earth, plants could not run away, but they survived through three primary mechanisms documented by ecologists and geneticists. The first one was the microrefugia, the safe havens. The leading explanation in historical botany is the glacial survival hypothesis. As ice sheets advanced from the north, plants ranges contracted. Many species survived in refugia pockets of land that maintain hospitable local climates. The classic southern refugia, the European trees and plants retreated south into protected valleys around the Mediterranean basin. When the ice melted, they slowly recolonized the north. Then you have the cryptid north refugia, where genetic mapping by researchers at the University of St. Andrews proved that these Arctic plants did not flee south. By tracking the genetic diversity of the purple secaphrage or the secaphaga oppositifolia, they discovered the highest diversity was in Alaska and the Yukon. Now, because this specific northern area, or because these specific northern areas were never fully glaciated due to dry conditions, plants managed to hold the ground in tiny ice-free valleys right next to the massive glaciers. And then you have the severe photorespiration, which is the second one. Researchers from Penn State University published a Nature Geoscience analyze. The research from Penn State University published in Nature Geoscience analyzed subfossil wood from the last ice age. They discovered that ice age trees had to deal with an extra threat, heavily depleted atmosphere, CO2 basically. To survive the cold, dry, carbon-starved environment, ancient trees dramatically ramped up photorespiration, a process where a plant consumes oxygen and releases CO2. While it operates like a form of labored breathing that wastes energy, it effectively stabilizes the plant's internal chemistry so they don't wither away from metabolic shock. That's actually pretty interesting. So they have the next one, which is cryptobiosis, the ultimate pause button. And that one is the most mind-boggling proof of Ice Age survival comes from plants that simply let themselves get frozen solid, entering a state of complete metabolic suspension. The 32,000-year-old bloom. Russian and international scientists successfully revived a flowering plant, Silene stenophylla, from tissue found in seeds buried 38 meters deep in the Siberian permafrost. The seeds had been frozen since the late Pleistocene epoch, stored away by an Ice Age ground squirrel. Brought into a modern lab, the ancient tissue grew, matured, and produced perfectly viable flowers, regenerating mosses. That was the part where I was supposed to split the sentences. But then you have regenerating mosses. Researchers studied glaciers, researchers who studied glaciers have found that primitive plants like mosses possess totipotent cells similar to human stem cells. Mosses that were tapped directly beneath heavy ice sheets for 400 to 500 years. 400 to 500 years. Actually, that would be million years, I guess. It's a typo. 400 to 500 million years or so ever have been observed growing fresh green tips within a year of ice melting. Well, actually, maybe it is 400 to 500 years. So
you got me thinking actually. What sort of plants have we yet to discover because of like in the Antarctic landmass? It was once upon a time not as frozen as it was now. So yeah, what could be buried in the Antarctic?
This kind of points out something that struck me was that we're very impressed with these plants' ability to be buried in ice for hundreds of years. A lot of the world is glaciated, and we know that there have been, as we call them, ice ages, where the glaciers have retreated and they've come at, they've advanced and so forth. For us, we think in terms of a plant's life cycle, usually in a, sorry about that, neighbors, a plant's life cycle in terms of the year. We're agriculturalists, harvest and all that sort of thing. But this ability kind of, to me, shows how the longer cycles of nature are also incorporated into how these things have evolved. We're kind of amazed, but when you think about it, hey, I've always said if you could speed up our sense of time, you'd see the Earth pulsing with ice and dry and spinning and whirling and stars exploding. So these are long-term processes, but I think they are just as cyclic as night and day and the year. So this seems to me, actually this makes a lot of sense that they could do this since they've been on this planet for so many million years.
Yeah, when you say the ice age, it's worth remembering that we're still technically in an ice age now.
Oh yeah, very cold.
Yeah, the Quaternary ice age, which started about 2.6 million years ago. But yeah.
We used to talk about that when I was in school, and I don't know what happened, but I remember my science teachers talking about how we were in a cold period, and they were worried about that it could increase, and that we could have glaciers coming down over Canada. And some of these guys are saying, "Oh, I don't know, maybe in a couple hundred years, like it could happen." That's very quick in geologic time. And they extolled how much better life is for humans when it gets warmer. They talked about the Roman warm period, the Minoan warm period. Harvests are better. People don't freeze to death. There's a lot more land freed up, so there's a lot more room. And they bemoan the fact that we look to be headed for more ice. And I was taught that, if only we could get the world to warm up a little more, it would be so much better for us. But that was like the 1970s.
Again, now you understand why I get annoyed when I hear all the sort of global warming, the end is nigh.
Well, I don't think this is necessarily the show for that, but we can talk about that.
Yeah,
a lot to say.
Yeah, during the Ice Age, in between the Ice Age, less water. You know how they show if the water went down, there would be a lot of land mass there. Okay, what would be the plants would be like farther down? They say the farther you go down in Earth, the temperature, the quality of air, and your gravity is changed farther you go down. Okay.
Underneath the surface.
No, not under, just on the ground, but farther down.
Oh, as you mean as the water level drops. You mean
like
as the water level drops?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as the water level drops, you would have a different environment. The soil would be different, and you're right. There would be different. The air pressure would be different. Even the gravity would be slightly different. Gravity is very slightly different on top of a hill or below. But yeah, it would be a new kind of an ecology, I guess, because it would be lower than the other land, so it would be still on the shore, probably, if it was sinking water, but maybe not if a lake dried up. So I think the main differences would be the soil would be different, and just the kind of stuff you'd get if you planted a garden in one place rather than another. So yeah, I think certain plants would certainly be gravitated. And from an evolutionary standpoint, if you're talking about plants in the water evolving into land plants, that would also be a mechanism to get force plants to evolve so that they didn't need to be submerged all the time. And there'd be different plants further down, like you were saying, Robert. So maybe that would happen too. But that's what occurred to me about that.
Yeah. And like they were showing on there's countries, prehistoric countries down there, farther down, and that's what I was coming up with, is that with different things, and how Arizona has some top mountains, flat ones.
Now, is your mic down, Robert?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would be like where we are now on this landmass is we're on top of mountains, more or less. Because you stop and look, if the water slowly would go down, look at the more and more open land, and the more open land, you would have a whole, like you could look up and see the top.
Now, can I actually jump in there on that one, because right now is actually a good chance to, like, Bob Dub's from New Zealand, okay? And New Zealand is actually a part of the continent called Zoolandia, I believe they call it. Isn't that what they call it, Bob Dub?
Zealandia.
Zealand, and that would actually be something that would be interesting. Like if the sea levels actually went down, a lot of that continent would be revealed, and I wonder what that would be like, because they've actually said that it would actually be an entire continent if it was above water. But
well, everything would be, really, Roger. I mean, all your continental shelves. If all your continental shelves came up out of the sea, your land masses would increase dramatically. But it's around southern Africa, also, I think, probably around Europe and Britain and all the islands up there, the Hebrides and all those.
I was just thinking of the old Doggerland concept in between Britain and Germany. Yeah.
It is interesting, but there's no evidence, really,
I'm
to
sorry,
show
I was babbling.
that sea levels go up or down.
Well, actually, and I'm sorry, I was babbling. I didn't realize I was muted. I was I mentioned that a lot of these continental shelves were above sea level, and Mark did mention Doggerland, and there's also a record in the Mabinogion of when the Welsh expedition went across to Ireland. It was easy because the sea was much shallower then and narrower, and there were only 2 rivers, they said. So this seems to be an actual record of a time, and within humans were living there when the water levels were much lower. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any Doggerland legends. We know it was there. They've even found the rivers that flowed there, but I don't think there's any folk tales or legends about it. Wales is full of that, the drowned county and stuff like that. They seem to remember that.
So it's like when the plants during in between the ice ages, how the plants had to work to break up the volcano ash, and the volcano were getting hit by the tornado would start sparking it up, electrical, but then when it would land on top of a volcano, like what we seen, what happened here in the U.S. On Earth just recently, a few years ago. That whole process happened, and look how it electrified the atmosphere, but then released all the material from the volcano.
Well, I have heard that there are thunderstorms and electrical discharges associated with volcanoes when they erupt, and also like odd flashes even far away from the volcano, which could be an electromagnetic. It's really hard to get witnesses because you're in the middle of a volcanic eruption, so you're probably not taking notes or measuring things. You're just trying not to. But yeah, I have heard a lot of descriptions. It's generally, I think, accepted.
And the thing of it is, during that time, how did the plants progress? What specific time was that? That like the second ice age, was it the smaller animals, or and like with seaweed? Okay, seaweed came from a plant, and it was frozen over. I don't know whenever it started, however the process was with that. But yeah, but like how did the plants progress? All they altered, and with like evergreens trees, they don't never lose their leaves, but they have however they do it. And the heart, how does the heart from the root part, how does it survive, and how does it alter the material, like the crystals, or if it has to change to evolve with the climates and the weather?
Well, bringing up the evergreens, they are very, very modified, or they're designed, or they've evolved for really cold climates. And like you say, they never lose their leaves, their needles, and their needles. They're designed for like snowfall and ice, and they always have them. I mean, they shed their needles, but they're always growing new ones. Kind of like my hair, hopefully, keep growing new ones. And it's the sort of thing where I can see where, as things gradually got colder, some plants would do better in the cold because their leaves were narrower. I was thinking too about how a lot of the times plants survive these disasters because they're not always in the form of a growing thing and stuck in the ground, but in the form of seeds or spores, if we're talking about fungi. When you look at how well protected conifers seeds are, I mean, it's in a cone. That's why we call them conifers, right? A pine cone, a fir cone. It's a pretty massive little container for a seed, So a lot of these disasters things, seeds are very resilient, and they can survive a lot. It is a stage in the life cycle of the plant, and that seed is as much the plant, to my mind, as what you get after you plant it and water it and weed and this and that for so many months. It's still the same thing. So this can help these plants survive, and seeds can survive for years sometimes. And I don't know about plants, but I know that like mushroom spores can survive in hard vacuum and withstand high levels of radiation and still be viable. So that's a pretty tough customer. That's going to help you on the road of evolution or just survival.
Yeah. During that time, how does with the ice age and all that, does it help clean the soil of whatever is happening? When it breaks the materials down, or however.
I'm not an expert, but I know it does move soil around, and certainly there are these things called moraines, terminal moraines sometimes, and they're big piles of rocks. And basically, they were at the front of the glaciers that were like moving along, and they're this big, half a mile thick sheet of ice, and things in front of it, it either rolls over them or pushes them. But then when they stop and they melt, they leave all this stuff, not only the stuff at their face, but also all the debris they picked up underneath, and it just melts and it falls away. So you'll find like weird boulders somewhere, or like, again, weird piles of rocks. And those have been left by the glaciers, and maybe that I'm sure moving that around stirs up the earth, moves material around. They push trees and this and that. And another thing, when the earth's covered with ice like that for years, nothing can really grow there much. So it's kind of like keeping the soil fallow, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's still bacteria and things going on under there. I mean, there's life under glaciers, ice worms and things. So maybe I could see how it would change the soil that way.
Oh, because what I was referring to, like they always say how the ice age begun with the asteroid hit the Earth and the radiation from it and all that. I was wondering, when the ice age and the two merged, how would you say that would work with it, as well?
Well, I don't know about the dating of these asteroid hits. I know that there's a generally they talk a lot about there was an asteroid strike that wiped out the dinosaurs, and I do know. I mean, I believe you can just look at the surface of the Earth, and there's some big craters. The Gulf of I almost said Mexico, but that big gulf there at the beneath that to me looks like a crater. The Yucatan Peninsula. And then there's the meteor crater in Arizona. So the planet's been getting bombarded for a long time, but I'm not really sure about the dating, and I've heard people argue against the dinosaur theory, and I'm not sure if it actually directly relates to the Ice Age as such. From what little I know of the Ice Ages, they occur in like a cycle, seems to be a cyclical pattern that may or may not be connected to like solar activity, but it makes a lot of sense to me because that's our main heater, right? I'm not sure. I know for sure. I mean, asteroid hits, yeah, that's going to change a lot of the local weather for a while. Heck, you remember Mount St. Helena erupting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was just like one volcano, but that's the kind of dust an asteroid would kick up. So the weather got wacky, the sunsets were spectacular, and places closer to it, it was pretty miserable. So yeah, but I'm not sure how the two would relate, to tell you the truth. I'd have to study it more.
That's what I was asking for, is because they have shown a whole area of the U.S. how that when the asteroid did come, the materials from the asteroid was showed up in layers in the earth under the soil, and through the process, I was wondering, like plants, like the materials from that, however it worked through the Ice Age.
I think really when you're talking about asteroids, we're talking about relatively small objects when it hits the that will only produce a sort of very temporary sort of environmental change.
Now, I do have.
I'm sure.
I do have information on Antarctica if you want to hear that, because that's the last part that you wanted me to pull notes on. But like when it comes to like the meteors and stuff like that, that is a very interesting thing to do. But like if you want me to, I can read this, because I think we're up to like 42 minutes, and it's the last part of the actual notes I pulled up for you guys if you want to hear it.
Okay, yeah, that wouldn't hurt.
Because this is actually where it gets the most interesting. It's the research that they found in Antarctica. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, sounds interesting. By all means.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so while the coastal areas of Antarctica support a miniature ecosystem of hardy greenery, the geographical South Pole itself is a sterile polar desert covered in nearly 2 miles of shifting ice. However, humans have brought plants to the South Pole intentionally. Um, Part one to this is plant life at the exact South Pole location. Now, the geographical South Pole is one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. The native plant life is zero. There are absolutely no native plants, mosses, or lichens at the South Pole. The environment lacks liquid water, has an average temperature of negative 45 degrees Celsius, which is negative 56 degrees Fahrenheit. And it sits at an altitude of nearly 10,000 feet and goes through 6 consecutive months of complete darkness. Now, the hydroponic exception. The only living plant at the South Pole resides inside the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. Scientists operate the South Pole Growth Chamber, a high-tech hydroponic greenhouse. It grows fresh lettuce, kale, tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers to sustain the isolated research crew. NASA and other agencies use this greenhouse to study how astronauts might grow fresh produce on future missions to Mars or the Moon. Now you come to part two, which is native plant life in outer Antarctica. Now, as you move away from the frozen interior and head towards the coast, especially the Antarctic Peninsula, you encounter a fragile, thriving plant ecosystem. The only 2 flower plants. Out of the entire continent, only 2 vascular flowering plant species have adapted to survive. And that's the Antarctic hairgrass, which is the Dyschopsia antarctica, a highly resilient, low-growing grass that can freeze solid and resume photosynthesis immediately when it thaws. Then you have the Antarctic pearlwort, which is called the Colobanthus quetensis, a small yellowish green plant that grows in dense moss-like cushions to shield itself from freezing winds. The cryptogams, mosses, and lichens, the true forests of Antarctica, are microscopic. Scientists have categorized over 100 species of mosses and 200 species of lichens across the ice-free rocky coast. These miniature plants systems grow incredibly slowly, but some moss beds on the eastern coast being with some moss beds on the eastern coast being thousands of years old. Rapid expansion due to climate change. Satellite tracking research spanning 35 years have shown that Antarctica's vegetation is rapidly turning greener. As glacier melt and summer temperatures warm, the area covered by mosses on the Antarctic Peninsula has increased drastically. And then part 3, what lay beneath the South Pole ice sheets. While there is no plant life in the South Pole today, it wasn't always the way. Millions of years ago, Antarctica belonged to a massive supercontinent called Gondwana. During the Cretaceous period, about 83 million years ago, the exact South Pole region was covered in lush green temperatures rainforest. Polar expeditions have found fossilized logs, ancient tree rings, and fossilized leaves from southern beech trees. Nathophagus, Nathophagus, and ginkgos on glaciers just a few thousand miles from the South Pole. It was only as the continent drifted directly under the pole axis and cooled that this massive green expanse froze over completely. And before I stop talking, I want to remind Mark, this is not my show. This is Robert's show. So if you want to talk about global warming, it's up to him, and I don't think he has a bit of a problem with that. So
yeah, no. I just mentioned that just as a side point.
Okay, it's up to you and Robert. You know what I mean?
But your point about Antarctica sort of just goes back to the point I made earlier. You just reiterating what I was saying.
This is of course the mainstream, geology and I guess paleobotany for what happened to these plants. They found these plants and they were growing there when Antarctica was part of Gondwana, and that does make a lot of sense, and it fits in with everything else we have, all our other information. However, you guys are probably also aware, and I don't mean for this, and hopefully Robert will allow this, but Graham Hancock, as we all know, has a theory that Antarctica was once Atlantis, and he seems to be saying that these trees are from a more recent period. So this is interesting because this basically refutes Graham, and I hadn't heard this before, that these were Gondwanese. And I'll tell you the truth, it makes more sense to me than what Graham is saying, but it's so I'm very glad this information came up on this meeting. I hadn't heard that before.
On that, does it show that same tree has it ever grown anywhere else? Because we call it like blow off of seeds from it, or however it produces, like carries on by the winds.
Well, I know ginkgo, I think that's a tropical tree. I don't know a lot about plants, really, I'm afraid, but I know that those trees grow other places where it's warm. So that implies that, Antarctica was warm at one time.
Yeah, I know ginkgo is around, but I don't know for sure about like the other ones. I can run a quick check if you want me to.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that there has been. Carry on.
No, I was just thinking, just on the side note of Mottle's Atlantis connection. I've never heard of Antarctica being that theory, that connection between Antarctica and Atlantis.
Yeah, it was Graham Hancock. I've heard him say it too. He's actually brought that up quite a few times, but now he's actually doing research with a bona fide biologist. So his whole story is kind of I take it that he's actually kind of rethinking his whole way of looking at things when it comes to that.
Really? Huh?
Yeah.
I read a few of his books a long time ago. I haven't kept up with any of his latest stuff in years, but I did read the Atlantis book. And,
He's actually hanging out with a real biologist who's saying, look, man, this is what happened. Like, if you take a look at, like, the Lake Michigan, for example, okay? Now he's starting to look at it and he's saying maybe something did crash into the earth that created Lake Michigan, and there's also evidence that it could have possibly happened up around Hudson Bay too, which they're doing a lot of good research in. They're really big in the early dry ice research, like the way early dry ice occurred and how we came out of it, stuff. So it's interesting. If you get a chance to check it out, I'd check it out.
Well, Oh, hey Bob, what was you saying?
Yeah, you can't interrupt Bob like that. Robert's her biggest fan, Mark. So you're going to have to show a little respect.
There is some evidence that the poles were at one stage very warm, swampy areas, and they have found bones of a very big creature that looks like a crocodile in the Antarctic. But at the moment, what weather people, whatever you call them, meteorologists, believe is that we need those ice caps in order to keep the Earth's rotation stable between the very hot equator and the very cold ice caps. And because we've got the hot equator and the cold ice caps, we've got a medium area in between where we can live and be happy. The fear is that if the ice caps melt too much, the Earth will get hotter and hotter, and we won't have areas in which we can grow plants.
You know, could I inject quickly too, to also add to what Bob is saying? I've also heard there's the opposite worry too, that we could have a snowball Earth if the ice age gets to, and I think there is a theory that that may have happened, but I think most people don't think it ever has. But yeah, you could also have the opposite, and it would be the same situation, an extreme either way, where we couldn't live. We need that middle way.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about not living. After all, we're humans. We are highly adaptable.
Well, yeah. I mean, some of us would live, but if you call it living, I don't know. I'm sure we would survive one way. I hope we would survive one way or another.
Yeah, but how much would the oxygen be? Because if you talk about land, because that much water being released, how much landmass would be gone, and within that landmass, how much forest would be gone from it?
Well, nobody knows because all of this is guessing.
Yeah.
But remember that we have got a lot of vegetation under the water in the seas. And that water is also producing oxygen. That's one thing to bear in mind. The other thing to bear in mind is that we now live in the age of artificial intelligence and robots. We can change our climate. We can build huge greenhouses. We can put in huge big fans. We can build great big covers. In fact, here's something interesting for you. When I was a little girl, my father worked at the research station in the Metropolis. Is it? Or Salisbury? We might have moved. And he built a huge, great thing called a rain shelter, which was like a great big, massive shed on tracks. And he used to push it back up and down across the field to regulate how much rainwater the plants got that he was studying to see. And that was what, 40 or 50 years ago, that people were already experimenting with different ways to grow plants in different climatic zones. So I think that a lot of the scary literature that we've had about climate change was written before the LLMs came along, because now you can put a problem in and they can give you a solution. Oh, well, we'll just put up a shed, we'll just make a glass house, we'll just put in an irrigation system, and we can change climate zones. Yeah, so we no longer need to wait for the Earth to change climate zones. We can make intentional changes, which is very frightening to consider.
I agree that we can change, we can make changes, but that's not related to large language models or any so-called AI. That's down to political needs political motivations.
Well, probably in the long run, but what the large language model has done is it has democratized knowledge. So people now are no longer as fooled by a government who says, oh no, we don't have money for that, we could never do it. We need all that money to pay our salaries. How could we possibly look after you?
Exactly.
I'm getting bitchy. Sorry.
Now, I did do a search for the plant life that they mentioned. The ancient South beech trees is the tree rings that was found in the Antarctic. They call them the ancient southern beeches, and they're found all over the southern hemisphere. I believe they're even in New Zealand, according to what they were telling me. And then they also said that the only surviving member of this ancient group today is the ginkgo biloba, and that everybody knows what that is. But the ancient tree rings and fossilized leaves on the polar glacier belongs to these trees, which are the South Beach, and it's called Nethophangus, and then the Glossopteris and ancient conifers, which are Permian behemoths in older fossil layers dating back to 260 to 280 million years, long before the beech trees evolved. Expeditions found massive petrified forests dominated by a tree genus called Gesopteris and early ancestors of modern podocarp and Araucarian conifers.
Is that the ones like in Arizona, the trees petrified in them?
Now, these right here are actually would be you would find these more like in New Zealand, which is in Australia, which is closer to the South Pole. You probably find them in Brazil, South America, or maybe the edges of Africa, even like South Africa in that area. Some of them.
So a southern tree.
Right. The British Antarctic Survey is where they're pulling this from, so you probably find it there. So
we can trust the British anyway; they'll do their job.
Yes, you can trust the British.
Okay, and another thing, I was wondering, like solar flares. There's different types of solar flares, and with the Earth. Electrical in the atmosphere. How does the solar flares hit the
now, actually, that
Robert, makes how does it affect the plants?
That is actually pretty interesting because, first of all, we promised Bob Dub that we'd only go an hour, and Mark too, because he's tired. But I wanted to mention something about this on this two-part thing that we've done. This actually brought up two things that I'd like to do later with you. And the first one I would like to do is go over I mentioned it to Bob Dub too, but electromagnetism because of the what we found out with the radiation. And that made me think of thunderstorms that occur over freaking volcanoes whenever they erupt. I think that would be a really good conversation to talk about. And this also made me think about chemical plumes. Me and Mark was actually on a show with Vicky Bass, and we talked about that. Her husband was really big into like chemical plumes and how vegetation and everything basically leaves a plume in the earth, and you can actually detect it with monitors and devices and stuff.
Would that be detected like by seaweed as well?
Yeah, everything that's biological, these devices can actually pick up on.
And like Bob was saying about oxygen. With seaweed help keep the oxygen within the soil. About the same as what on ground.
Yeah, we could find out, but I mean, I think we probably better bring this to an end. What do you think?
Well, we've got plenty of stuff for.
Interesting episode. Sorry, Otto.
What'd you say, Bob?
I said that was a really interesting episode. It was very interesting. I would like to go into that in more detail. I think that it would be fascinating to look at the internal functioning of the plants and see how they actually stop themselves from freezing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, anyway, yes, it was a fascinating episode. Thank you very much.
I was going to say, it sounds like we have a lot of material for a follow-up episode, too.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I guess the next one would be Mercury and red mercury.
He's been obsessed with mercury.
Well, yeah, because it deals with a plant.
Okay, now let me break this down to you guys where he's coming up with this. And Bob W, you might be interested in this. He likes to watch Ancient Aliens, okay? And he's fascinated with the first king of frickin' China, emperor of China, being buried in that frickin' pyramid with mercury. Then there's the temple that's in South America that they found, archaeologists found, had freaking red mercury within the tomb for what's-her-face. I think she's the one that actually you guys freaking talk about, Maya.
I think so.
Bob Dub. The tomb.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry.
I can find that later, but that's where he's coming from. He wants to talk about mercury and stuff.
Red mercury.
Mercury is a sort of conceptual preservative.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a very magical sort of a thing, Quicksilver, mercury, and it was very important to the Chinese alchemically. As I recall the story of the Emperor's tomb, he was entombed and there was like a pool of mercury surrounding him as a protective sort of a thing. I do know that when they did some soil samples around the tomb, they discovered large amounts of mercury in the soil. So they think there's some basis in truth. The thing is, the Chinese government they're not excavating the tomb, and they claim it is because they want to wait until archaeological techniques get better in another 50 or 100 years so that they can excavate it properly. Although, and this isn't the place to go into it, but I have heard that there are other political, ramifications. But in any event, the mercury's been very important, and I'm not surprised that you would find it in a tomb in America as well as in a tomb, in China. It's a very magical fluid, and if you had access to it, you would probably be amazed by it, and you would want to give it a lot of importance. Red mercury is interesting because I'm not really hooked into it anymore, but that was a trope going around in occultists and alchemical circles for a while, and people were actually claiming to be dealers in red mercury. But this isn't the place to dive into that. But it was a kind of a meme at one time. Like back in, I think it was like the 1980s or 90s.
Well, and during World War II, the Nazis would experiment with it, and 3 to 4 of their scientists had radiation burns and high from electrical discharge from it.
It's very toxic, yeah. I think the big thing about mercury is that it is a conductor of electricity, and it's a liquid conductor. So in theory, you could, if you had something spinning in mercury, you could power it through the mercury and have a frictionless or nearly frictionless. I think they might have been working on things like that. I don't think any of it ever really worked out as practicality. But again, I don't really know a whole lot about the subject. This is, stuff I was reading about, 30 years ago. But it's all being stirred up by this conversation. But yeah, again, we have a lot of good stuff to go on for the next show.
Okay, so I think we should hold off and use that for another episode. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, if it's all right with you guys.
Sure.
Okay, because I found it interesting because like the atmosphere, how the atmosphere works with that stuff, or however what would happen, you know, because like the solar flares hits the electrical atmosphere, and how does it produce? How does it affect the weather?
I don't think it does, to be honest. I can do some research for you, but I'm pretty sure you're just like really getting crazy about it. You get crazy about a lot of things, you know that, right?
Yeah, that's what you said. But
I just want to say, dude, it's like you take a freaking mile and turn it into 50 miles.
But yeah, but what I'm referring to is there are certain.
I'm just really impressed you didn't have me searching for more this week, because last week you should have asked Bob though, dude. It was hell. Like I was just tapping away on the keyboard, finding new stuff and everything.
Well, I was referring to
We were magnificent.
the color of solar flares.
Okay.
What's the difference of the different types?
Do you want me to go ahead and take us out, because you are just you are just wild.
Well, you guys have a nice day. You too, Bob.
And let me do the cool outro.
Thanks,
Okay.
Robert.
Okay, now that brings us to the end of tonight's program. We appreciate everyone who stopped by to spend some time with us. Even if you're not watching this now, you can watch this later. So thank you for taking time to join the conversation, guys. If you enjoyed tonight's discussion, we'd appreciate your support by following the channel and sharing the stream with someone who might find it interesting. We'll be back with more conversation and new topics soon. Until then, take care of yourself. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everyone.
That was excellent, Robert. Thank you for letting me be on your show. I appreciate it. It was really fun.
I'm glad that you all decided to come, because it makes it even better.
Well, I was really happy with that too, because there was things that you guys brought up that me and Robert didn't even think about, to be honest with you. I mean, it was really interesting. And then like the water or the plants coming out of off or out of the water onto shore, you know what I mean? That's really interesting. Because you always hear about like humans, you know what I'm saying? How we are supposed to come up out of the water and become land roamers, but
Right, but you forget about the plants. Yeah, I do anyway.
Nobody. And I'll tell you something too. When I didn't put it on the stream or on the recording, but you guys know that life is everything on the planet, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if we live or die. Life is always going to be on this planet. It will always replenish itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, from what I've read here, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to beat the plants. I don't care what happens to this planet. Those freaking...
Unless as what is meant to happen in Mars, our environment is stripped.
We don't know what. There could be plants under the ground. Bob Dub mentioned that too. She mentioned a little bit about like underground, and the moment she said that, I was thinking that same thing. We don't know what's under the ground.
Have you heard of the coelacanth? Do you know the coelacanth?
No.
The coelacanth is a fish that is come from dinosaur age. They found it off the South African coast, and it has survived all 6 extinction events. They don't know where it breeds. They think that there are caverns somewhere. It's got fins, normal fins like a fish on the top and the bottom, and then its fins on its edges on its sides have got little arms, and then the fin is on the little arm, and they think that it goes through long caverns, tunnels, into deep sea caverns somewhere where it breeds and where its actual places to live. They don't know, they're guessing, but they haven't found the coelacanth swimming around in the sea. They just every now and then find a dead one in a sea net, and they've made up this. Well, when I spoke to the guy in the museum when I was there in South Africa, he was saying that one of the things they've wondered about is if there are great big underwater caverns somewhere where these creatures live, and they get out into the normal ocean by mistake.
I'd never heard that. That's amazing. That's an amazing theory. I know that when they found a coelacanth, and everyone was amazed because everyone had thought it was extinct for millions of years. But I hadn't heard that speculation about the underworld sea, the underground sea. Interesting. That's fascinating.
See, and that's the stuff I think we should get into right there. Eventually, we should be going into that because that is cool.
Yeah,
the guy that I spoke to in the museum was the guy who was a youngster. He was very old when I saw him, but when he told me that he was the guy that was there with the first woman when they brought her the coelacanth, and somebody in the museum cut the fish up and threw all its guts out, and she had a fit and made him go and dig through all the dustbins in the alley and bring all its guts back.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, that was really stupid because that right.
Well, who's going to eat it? That's.
She wanted to study it. She wanted to study what their food. Yeah, I know what their food was.
You know, I mean, it's like. I mean,
I have a fish fry.
He didn't care. He's like, man, look at this fish. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the material from the fish, you know, what kind of minerals does
he had already gutted it out. He had already gutted it out. He'd thrown all the guts in the alley.
Yeah,
he was
in the alleyway. He was being helpful.
Yeah. He just wasn't thinking. That's what you do with a fish. He wasn't thinking, you know. Like Robert's saying, you want that stuff. That's got all that information in there. What do they do?
Exactly.
That might tell us where they live, you know.
That's why
this is the one that you've got in America in your Smithsonian, I believe.
Oh, wow. See, that's good.
That does look primitive, doesn't it? That looks like it's from the...
See these little arms? See, its fins are on little arms. They think that the little arms they use them to walk down the tunnels. They use them to push themselves between cracks of rock.
That is interesting.
Yeah, there was a guy in Florida. He was explaining the process to my dad about taking a tractor, put it on a fish, and putting it down into this one area of water, and they tracked it, and they lost the track for about a month, but then it popped up, went from Florida to like Georgia, higher up, in another water area. So they're thinking that.
I was actually talking to a guy by the name of Dave Campione. He lives up in northern Florida about Lithia Springs, and that's where he's talking about is Lithia Springs. That's like connected to springs in Florida. They really don't know how far it goes. Like these underground springs are connected to one another. You could be in Florida, get sucked into a freaking spring, and end up in freaking Florida somewhere.
Another thing that we didn't talk about today is mycelium living in outer space.
Oh, yes. That's a good one.
Yeah, the spores that can survive hard vacuum and radiate. You know, why would you evolve for that unless you did it? That's what I always say.
Well, you know the story behind how they discovered that, don't you?
No.
Oh.
They don't know how it actually happened. The astronauts were sitting and they were doing their research, and they looked at the freaking windows, and mycelium was literally growing on the windshield. And they don't know. They say that it might have been contamination from the cargo that was brought up to the station.
It was out there. It was waiting for them.
Well, I heard that.
Dormant.
Do you remember we did the
dormant? Yeah, sorry. No, I was just curious. Literally growing, or was it dormant?
It was growing. It was actually functioning.
I have heard of. I didn't hear it was mycelium, but I had heard something about they found things that were alive on the outside of a spacecraft in, for all intents and purposes, hard vacuum. I know it's not perfect vacuum. We won't get into that. But it's close enough for, nothing on Earth in theory should be able to live, up there. And here's something that did. So, panspermia, right? Life throughout the universe.
Yeah, but they found out that there's about 12 different types of bacteria stuff that can actually survive in space. 12 of them.
12.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder
bring
too,
that up, Robert.
What they are talking about, that window stuff, it could be what's growing in NASA in that concealed container unit of where the probe is, and the fungus is growing on it. They, back in the 80s, they brought it back and they put it on the shuttle in the container and brought it back, and they put it in that concealed room because it's some kind of fungus